It's once again time for the news here on Rwanda Television. It's my pleasure to welcome you, our viewers, to this latest edition. My name is Serge Nhore. We'll start with the headlines. President Paul Kagame has congratulated President Mamadi Doumbouya on his election victory. And on the international scene, the EU Commission is examining concerns over childlike sexual images generated by Elon Musk's Grok. Now the details. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. The President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame, has congratulated his counterpart of Guinea-Conakry, His Excellency Mamadi Doumbouya, on his victory in the elections held on the 28th of last month. The head of state said that Rwanda is ready to strengthen cooperation and continue working with Guinea to promote the development of citizens in both countries. On Sunday, the Supreme Court of Guinea-Conakry officially confirmed the victory of President Doumbouya, who won with 86.72% of the votes. His Excellency Doumbouya called on Guineans to unite and work together to build a country founded on peace, justice, and shared prosperity for all citizens. Guinea-Conakry is a country in West Africa that lies along the Atlantic Ocean. Rwanda and Guinea have cooperation agreements to promote various sectors, including technology, agriculture, investment, services, tourism, energy, and trade. The relationship between the two countries is strong and is reinforced by visits from their heads of state. In March of last year, His Excellency, the President of Guinea, visited Rwanda on a trip aimed at strengthening the friendship between the two countries. Now, members of parliament believe that the 0.8% alcohol limit set by the presidential order, which is used to determine whether drivers have consumed alcohol that is in excess, has been effective in reducing road accidents, and that lowering it further could create a gap that would put citizens' lives at risk. The program for testing alcohol levels in drivers in Rwanda has been largely strengthened by the authorities responsible for road safety, following reports showing that a number of accidents were caused by drivers who had consumed alcohol beyond the legal limit. It is a program that many citizens appreciate for producing results, especially after some drivers were penalized. However, in the revision of the law governing the use of alcohol, Article 9 in the draft law of that law indicates that the Minister of Infrastructure would be given the power to issue an order reducing the 0.8% limit. On Monday, during the approval of the draft law governing road use, some members of parliament expressed the view that reducing the alcohol limit for drivers without careful consideration could create a loophole that would increase the risk of accidents. The Minister of Infrastructure, Dr. Jimmy Gasore, who represented the government, has allayed public concerns on this matter, assuring that the government will not take any action that would put citizens' lives at risk. Until now, Rwanda was operating under the law of the 17th of September 1987 concerning roads and their use, which citizens often point out contains provisions that are no longer in line with current times. Now, on the first day of the second term in primary and secondary schools across the country, the Rwanda Education Board stated that the changes made to school leaders did not pose a problem, as other leaders have already begun being appointed to those positions. It is the start of the term for some schools that do not yet have principals. However, the Deputy Director General of REB says that this does not disrupt the smooth running of lessons and assures that the schools will be assigned new principals within this week. The second term of the 2025-2026 school year, that is the academic year, began after changes in the education sector, including an evaluation conducted on 5,277 school principals at the primary and secondary level in Rwanda, which revealed that 890 of them did not demonstrate the capacity to lead schools and were immediately reassigned to teaching positions. Now, security analysts here in the Great Lakes region say that during its one-year extended mandate, MONUSCO should align its actions with existing peace frameworks and negotiations and avoid any form of bias in order to effectively implement the signed agreements. Adam Skrizera with the details on that.
On December 19, 2025, the UN Security Council extended the mandate of the UN peacekeeping mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, to 1 year. The decision came with renewed responsibilities, including protecting civilians, preventing, repelling and stopping attacks on refugee camps, supporting the disarmament, demobilization and reintegration of former combatants, and monitoring compliance with the arms embargo. Ambassador Joseph Mutabuba, an expert in international relations, says that these responsibilities in themselves reveals contradictions with the realities on the ground.
About the UN Security Council resolutions on and about Zaire or the DRC or East African region or the countries of the region of the Great Lakes, there are so many of them. So to tell you that 2808 to me is a yes, it's a new figure, a new number, following 2773, and so on. I can go up to 1553, which created the group of experts and so on. To me, there's nothing new. It's a succession of resolutions drafted by the same people, by the same pen holder, as I call it, but there's nothing new as such, and I cannot expect any miracle with that. Why? For so many reasons. One, they repeat themselves, and they repeat themselves when and knowing that nothing has been done about the previous resolutions.
The operational mandate of MONUSCO's Force Intervention Brigade FIB has also been revised to enable it to play a stronger role in restoring peace and security in Eastern DRC. Established in 2013, the brigade is authorized to conduct offensive operations against armed groups, either independently or jointly with the FARDC. A move Ambassador Joseph Mutabuba says this should also be aligned with the peace processes that are in place.
Because when you look at what has been going on, Rwanda process, the Nairobi process, just call them any common name if you want. Then the Washington process, we call them anything you want. The common characteristic is that once this has been discussed and signed, is the same people and the same trend. Happens that there's no political will to do or to honor what they have signed. Or they have signed this, they read a different text, you wonder where it came from, you know? So if there's no political will to accept, to recognize that what we have discussed, agreed upon, and signed for is what we are going to do, then it will never happen. And that trend is clearly there to stay. When I hear statements from Kinshasa, from Muyaya, from all of them, it doesn't change much. So if it doesn't change as such, it means the political will is nil.
Before the UN Security Council, Ambassador Martin Ngoga, Rwanda's permanent representative to the United Nations, stressed that MONUSCO must remain impartial in order to support the implementation of the peace agreements.
Rwanda expects a mission that is clearly anchored in and reinforcing of the Washington Peace Agreement and the Doha Framework, both of which the Secretary General's report rightly identifies as the central avenues for a sustainable peace. The mandate must therefore prioritize strict impartiality and political neutrality, support to ceasefire implementation and political dialogue, robust human rights due diligence policy compliance, timely suspension and reporting mechanisms where required, refraining from offensive operations against parties formally engaged in political processes, and a realistic resource-conscious focus on stability, accountability, and political solutions. These priorities reflect the realities outlined in the Secretary General's report. MONUSCO's effectiveness will depend on aligning its operations with the political tracks that offer the only viable path forward. The Washington Peace Agreement and the Doha process are complementary, mutually reinforcing frameworks When the mission supports them consistently and impartially, it can help to create the necessary space for implementation.
During the one-year extension, MONUSCO will continue to deploy 11,500 troops, 443 police officers, military observers, and civilian personnel, bringing the total number of its personnel to about 600. Adams Kwizera, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Adams. Now, the National Council of Persons with Disabilities says it will continue working with all districts with the aim of addressing the challenges faced by young people with disabilities who work in youth support centers. Enola Gladys Wenimana with the details on that.
Youth with disabilities say that youth support centers play a major role in helping them achieve their dreams. Clementine Widuhaye, a young woman with disability who performs modern dance, says that working in youth support centers has greatly eased their lives as persons with disabilities because they provide opportunities to gain skills and showcase their talents. Compared to how we started, things were very difficult at first because there were no accessible pathways for persons with disabilities. For example, someone using a wheelchair or another person with a prosthetic limb will be forced to walk downstairs in spaces we were not comfortable with. But now, the Maison des Jeunes Youth Center has taken persons with disabilities into consideration and constructed accessible pathways. I'm confident that 2026 we will be able to work freely and comfortably. An employee at Kimisagara Youth Center, Isaiah Byukusenge, says that the center has specialized programs that help persons with disabilities learn various vocational skills that enable them to improve their livelihoods. It is a youth center and an inclusive institution. When you talk about inclusivity, it means a center where all youth, regardless of who they are, can feel welcome and access different programs. In particular, we have football and they have their own team in which they play. Sometimes they play on their own and at the other times they play together with others to promote inclusion. However, this is not all we focus on. After realizing that youth with disabilities were not actively participating in vocational training programs here, we introduced initiatives to encourage and motivate them to also learn vocational skills. On the part of the National Council of Persons with Disabilities, the Director in charge of Sports and Recreation, Aimable Sibomana, says they continue to work with various districts to find solutions to these challenges. The NCPD, as the National Council of Persons with Disabilities, focuses mainly on advocacy, especially at government levels, specifically districts and grassroots institutions responsible for citizens, including persons with disabilities. We carry out strong advocacy to ensure that in their planning and annual programs, they also take persons with disabilities into account, so that specific provisions are made for them, particularly in sports, as well as in culture, recreation, and many other areas. All these are activities that persons with disabilities can participate in thanks to their talents and abilities. After working with districts, we help in planning budgets and identifying other necessary requirements so that everyone can be treated equally. Currently in Rwanda, persons with disabilities participate in about 13 different sports, including well-known ones such as sitball, sitting volleyball, amputee football, and other various sports. There are also plans to introduce 2 additional new sports in order to expand opportunities for persons with disabilities.
A pleasure, as always, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Until then, goodbye.